Just want to recognize that this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. Just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. First, a quick welcome to Major Hargraves and Captain Francois. Welcome to both of you. And also to alternate directors Blacklock and Wells. Just to note, commissioners around the table, we have a very full agenda with lots of reports and meaty topics. So please, I would ask you to just keep your questions, answers, and comments as brief as possible. And with that, could I have a motion for receipt of the resolution status report? Okay. All right, and turn that over to staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If the commissioners have any questions about any of the items on the resolution status report, we've got staff available that can answer any of those. It's a regular report that we present to commission members on various resolutions the commission has made.
Any questions in the room? Okay, perfect. Do we need a motion to approve that item or? Perfect. Second, anyone? Second. Perfect. And all those in favor? Perfect. Carries. All right, next we are on to item number 2, the stage 3 liquid waste management plan update. Oh, sorry, number 1, sewage management advisory committee meetings. Thank you. Any questions about this? Perfect. Anyone opposed to passing? Okay, motion carries. Now we're on to the stage 3 liquid management plan update, and I'll turn that back over to staff.
Well, we want to receive it, move receipt.
Sure. Move receipt. Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Zoe Berkey, our senior engineering analyst, will be introducing this staff report and presentation on the stage 3 of the LWMP. So Zoe, over to you.
Thanks, James. Through the CEO and the chair to the directors. I've just created a brief PowerPoint to walk us through all the work that's underway for the stage 3 LWMP report. So just a quick refresher, what are we doing? What do we need to do? And where do we need to go to be ready to submit our stage 3 LWMP report? There's a lot of work underway and they're all kind of fitting and interlinked to each other. So we've retained a process expert and they're really focusing on improving our current process at the plant. And then we also have a contract with Carollo to finalize our site master plan and complete the detailed design of the first phase of upgrades at the plant, which as a refresher was kind of a new, the things we know for now are a new headworks, some electrical upgrades and UV disinfection, and creating and completing that Class B cost estimate for that work. And that Class B cost estimate is a key milestone for the LWMP, as that's a requirement from the province that we need that Class B to be able to submit our stage 3 LWMP report. In addition, we have some work underway by WSP, who's drafting the stage 3 LWMP report, completing some memos to kind of meet some of the requirements in the stage 1 and 2 review letter from the ministry, along with the South Sewer addendum process, all of this fitting into that stage 3 LWM report. So where are we and what are we doing right now? On the process optimization side, Reed and his crews had a very busy summer. They've been completing primary and secondary clarifier stress testing, so dropping from 3 clarifiers to 1 clarifier and seeing how our plant reacts, along with kind of completing a ton of additional lab analysis, looking at filamentous bacteria and RBCOD to help improve the settability of our existing process in our plant. On the stage 3 LWMP report, WSP is developing a number of technical memos. One of those is the outfall timing component, which we'll talk about a bit later in this presentation. And we're kind of gearing up for our first TAC PAC meeting for this fall. It's just kind of a reorientation and a dusting off the cobwebs of where we are at. The South Sewer extension, the addendum was submitted in the spring, and Derry and Vince are working through some proposal or RFP for design for that. And then on the site master plan and the detailed design side, it has been a busy summer with Carollo being on board and engaged to do the engineering work. They're doing multiple pieces of this work in parallel to try and meet our schedule. So they've been developing flow and load projections. We've completed tours of other facilities to kind of understand what we want for headworks technology and that kind of site layout. and then refining the scope of that first phase of upgrade. So looking at kind of the condition of our electrical components and then a structural assessment of our existing building to determine reuse. Through all this work, there's kind of been three key issues that are emerging. And the first one is the outfall replacement. So capacity is really driving the timing of that replacement and the need for a new outfall. And the original construction was trenched across a marine reef. So you can kind of see in the picture here. Oh, can you see my cursor? No. Kind of where you see that sandbar, we kind of trenched through there with likely some underwater blasting in the 1980s to construct our force main at grade to maintain gravity for most of the time. Constructing the same way now has some challenges. So, we can't just go and blast through a reef quite the same way we might have done in the past. So we're just looking at some alternate options for alignment and replacement, as it's not as straightforward as we originally hoped. The second issue, less of a timing issue, just more of an additional scope, is we have some historical boreholes at the plant from when it was constructed, and we've done some more recent boreholes when we did the conveyance project. And there's just some discrepancy between the historical and the more recent data. And this is really just additional boreholes required to kind of finalize that headworks structural design. So not planning to do this before we have a 30% design and kind of know where we're going, but just something that does have a cost impact and wasn't included in that original price for the work at the plant. And then finally, timing, as I've noted, there's just a lot of pieces going on. So we kind of now have a lot of these contracts underway and have a better idea on schedule and timing. So we've just kind of done a high level update of the schedule for that submittal. And so from now until kind of fall of next year, we're going to be really working on drafting the stage 3 LWMP report and pulling together all those different inputs from all the other consultants and to make sure we meet all the ministry's requirements for submittal. As mentioned, kind of planning probably 3 TAC PAC meetings, with that first one as a reorientation meeting in the fall. And then spring 2025 is the date that we're really driving towards for that Class B cost estimate for that first phase of upgrades at the plant, which is a key input to the stage 3 plan. Fall into winter of next year, we kind of have flagged that as some report review time. So just referrals to First Nations and the kind of final TAC PAC. And then that would kind of look at that submittal being early 2026 for the stage 3 report. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Zoe. Any questions? Perfectly explanatory report, Zoe. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to accept the report? And second, Director McCollum, and anyone opposed to accepting the report? Right, motion carries. Perfect. On to the much anticipated next item, number 3, the Comox Valley Sewer Conveyance Project Traffic Management Plan. Could I have a motion to receive this? Wells and McCollum. Anyone opposed? Perfect.
Great, thanks, Mr. Chair. Charlie Gore is our Senior Manager of Capital Projects Delivery, and Charlie will be presenting this update on the Conveyance Traffic Management Plan. I believe with a PowerPoint to go along. Yep, thumbs up. So Charlie, over to you.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair. I worry about the eagerly anticipated comment. I hope that this one is relatively painless. So we're bringing forward the traffic management plan for approval. This is the same draft traffic management plan that we brought through for approval in May and that we engaged on over the summer. And I want to step through what we heard from the public and any modifications that we've made and what it looks like moving forward. So this is the same unidirectional traffic flow 2025 that we've been discussing for several years now, and nothing has changed in the overarching plans for this. We went out for 2 open houses here in the Civic Room, and we also went out to Comox First Nation for an open house there. And we received some feedback, but not a huge amount of negative feedback about the plan. You know, people are obviously concerned about those traffic impacts, especially those that live in the corridor, the people who live down on Comox Road, whether they're in the First Nation or in the the farm area, as well as those that live up on Comox Hill. There's some big developments up there. And so we received a lot of people to the open houses. We received concern over the overuse of back road, which I think everyone is well aware of. But there was no substantive comments about the unidirectional plans that would make us reevaluate any of those plans. There was nothing that no alternate proposals that anyone came up with, no big ideas that would really affect the overarching plan. There was some good minor feedback, things about specific school bus routes that we hadn't taken into account. The one that was servicing IR1 down on Comox Road, that was a little bit separate to the greater work that we were doing with SD71, which we are now working closely with them on. And things like, the size of haying equipment that comes in once a year to the farms down on Comox Road, those kind of things, the minor little things that we really did want to hear, that we could make sure that our plans took into account. So as noted, there are no significant changes to the draft TMP that was approved in May. Some of the notable changes in there is that we did hear from the businesses down on Comox Road about their concern about impacts. And because for the first half of 2025, all of our impacts are going to be within IR1 or further east, those businesses like the veterinary clinic or the gas and go will still be able to be accessed from Courtney. And so we need to do a bit more work on engagement and the nuance of those signs on the 17th Street Bridge, so that the residents and the customers of those businesses know that they can turn right and head eastwards up to a certain point, so that the access to those businesses can be maintained. And so we'll be doing that as we move forward towards the end of the year, working closely with those businesses. Another one was regarding the night work on Comox Road and Comox Avenue. And so there are two areas that are very narrow, and that's between the Courtney Pump Station and Farmview Road. If you can imagine that section as you're driving past the Dyke Road Park project at the moment, seeing all that, the excavators working there, the road is very narrow and the existing pipe is already in the road. And so we're very constrained with the construction footprint there. And similarly on Comox Hill, as you come up the hill there, you can kind of picture the topography of the steep uphill slope and the steep downhill slope. So it's a very constrained corridor. And so we're planning to be doing those sections at night, such that we can keep that unidirectional westbound flow of traffic and the eastbound bike lane open during the day. But that will result in more heavy closures at night. And so we're going to be working with the contractors to try and sequence that work to make sure that residents have unimpeded flow as much as possible to their homes. In worst case, we're going to have to be working like they did on the route out to Tofino, with some batched flows coming through those construction zones just at night. And so there's some more verbiage in there about that, but those plans will be fleshed out with those contractors as we move towards construction. And the last one was something that we committed to back in May, was doing more modeling about the impacts of the potential closure of Back Road at Morrison Road. So that was already in the plan as an if necessary measure. If we're seeing Back Road be heavily abused as the detour route, that we could consider closing the road at Morrison Road, which would mean that that anyone trying to get to, for example, the IR1 section of Back Road from Courtney would have to go up around Lerwick and come down McDonald. And so there's some more verbiage in the plan about that, and the fact that would really further impact the delays along Ryan Road and Lerwick Road. We'd be pushing a lot more of those people who are responsibly using Back Road to get to their homes, for example, in Glacier View area and the area around McDonald Road, would all be forced around the main detour route. And so there's some more details in there about that to help inform the commission as we move into 2025, if we are seeing that condition, to help us make quick decisions and whether the commission would like to consider that. Moving into next year, we have a huge media campaign planned for November. So the start date for this is still January. And so I'm working closely with our engagement specialist, Ingrid Sly, to build the radio ads, the social media, the newspaper ads, letter drops. It's going to be everywhere. And as we know, we do all this communication all the time. We think people are well informed, and then we install these big changes and everyone says, what the hell? I never even heard of the sewer conveyance project. So we're going to be abusive in our kind of media campaign. We're going to be everywhere because we know how impactful this is going to be, and we want as many people as possible to be talking about this. Unfortunately, at Christmas dinners, at New Year's barbecues, we need the word to be out there by December, because by December it's all Christmas. People need to be planning for this and knowledgeable by the end of November. And then a couple of notes about how we are actually going to implement this. So it's one thing to have a plan, but how are we going to roll this out? And so we're going to have all the big digital signs going up in advance. There's still some conjecture about exactly when we'll pop those up. And then we're going to have all the traffic light timing sheets and alternates for those timing sheets pre-approved. So we're working with municipalities and Ministry of Transport to pre-approve alternate sheets so that when we go ahead and change the traffic light timing as proposed in the traffic management plan, if those timings aren't working, we're already going to have pre-approved alternates so that we can send our subcontractor out there to make those changes quickly without having to go through more engineering reviews at, the fear would be at the provincial level, Ministry of Transport, getting those things approved can take time. So we're going to have these alternates pre-approved, and we're going to have that traffic light subcontractor on standby that first week as we implement it all to do any minor tweaks that are necessary to keep that traffic moving. We're not going to promise that it's going to be perfect from the get-go, but if we have our backup sheets and our sub on standby, it's our best chance about being nimble and not being seen as being too lethargic in any changes required. So that's the kind of plan for 2025 and the traffic management plan that you have in front of you. I also wanted to give a bit of an update on traffic that we're experiencing now. And so to give the commission a kind of understanding of any closures that you've hit personally or that you've heard from your constituents, and the concerns that we're hearing and what we're trying to do about them. Just keep going. We'll do questions at the end. Okay. So Lazo Road, where we're currently building through the marsh on Lazo Road, and we have installed a night road detour. So for those living out in the Point Homes Lazo area, they're having to do a long detour out by the airport to get into downtown Comox. And that's because, again, the corridor through the Lazo Marsh is very constrained, and we have an absolute environmental mandate to stay in the road structure there. So this one is really painful, especially with the start of school. You have Brooklyn School just on the other side of the closure, and some of the folks that go there, and also Highland. So some of the kids live out in this area here. And so it's been really painful for them. And so we've been working really closely with them. Our engagement specialist, Ingrid, actually went out and personally flagged the trails that exist through the Northeast Woods and the provincial park there and with signage for each of the schools to try and help with the situation. But we have heard a lot of criticism. People feel that we should be keeping the corridor open for bikes and pedestrians at a minimum, and it's just not safe. We went through all the reviews. We tried to figure out how to fit a corridor in that would meet WorkSafe standards, and it's just not possible. And so we feel like we have done a lot of communication on this, and we have done a lot of work to try not to have this fully closed, but it has been, unfortunately, a necessity, and we are pushing as quick as we can to get through this section. And this section will all be opened up by mid-October for free-flowing traffic. And once we get past Guthrie Road on October 15th, then it becomes a lot less painful for this area, because once we get on the north-south section of Lazo Road, there are so many easy detours. You have the Forester neighborhood, you have Butchers, you have Torrance. It's a very nice area that we can easily bypass as we kind of do rolling block closures down Lazo Road. So that's one of the issues that we're experiencing right now. The other is on Balmoral Road. And so this one is one that the folks along Balmoral Road are really hurting because of the length of the impact. So, you know, the force main crew came through quite quickly, we feel, and got the force main in nice and deep along Balmoral Road. But it's the follow-up projects that we're doing. It's the sidewalks, the replacing of the sewer mains and the waterworks and the lighting projects that are on here. And so we are hearing a lot of frustration from residents up there about the length of that impact. And so I think this is really relevant because this isn't confined to just Balmoral. It's going to be the same thing that we experience on Beaufort. And obviously Beaufort is where we get down to the businesses. It's where we get down to the more condensed area of downtown Comox. It's that extra time, for example, we're replacing a sidewalk here and we did our due diligence and we hydrovac down to the water main that we knew was underneath there, and it was at a good depth here and it was a good depth here. And then when they pulled it up, they found that the 50-year-old water main was just came right up to the surface. So we have to replace that whole water line. It delays everything. And so the residents there are starting to really feel that hurt. And I'm sure lots of people have driven along Balmoral Road. It gets dusty on the weekends when the water trucks aren't running. And just the duration of construction there is just because of the large amount of scope that we're doing while we do the force main project. And so that's to preface what's coming up this winter as well. So between Church and Norden, that kind of downtown corridor on Beaufort, we do have a huge amount of surface improvement plans that we're doing after the force main comes through. And because of the timing, it's going to in effect be a 3-time impact to the residents down there. We're going to come through and do the force main, and then the crew are going to come down behind as a second impact and do the sidewalks and the crosswalks and the lighting and the sewer and the water. And it's likely going to be in the wintertime and then we'll do a temporary hot patch of the road to make sure it's not dusty, but then they're going to have to come back again in the spring to do the paving. And so just want everyone on the commission to be cognizant of that as we move forward and as we start reaching out to businesses with detailed engagement, and as we get a better idea of timing when we're going to be on their block. But that is going to be something that we feel is going to be very hard as we try and do such a large amount of infrastructure upgrades. I think I very much believe that we're doing the right thing by doing the impact once, but it's 3 times as we do it once, and that's going to be the hard thing to communicate. So I want to be very transparent and open about that as we go into the winter, because we do a lot of focus on Comox Road, Comox Ave, and we've got the rest of the project is also big, even on the more minor collector roads. That was it. That was my presentation for today. So I suppose there's 2 parts there. There's the traffic management plan, not a lot of changes, a little bit more fleshing out, and then a bit of an update on the traffic that we're experiencing right now.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you to you and your team for all that pre-planning and community engagement, and quite frankly, the transparency as well of what to expect. So appreciate that. First question we have, Director Grant.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Charlie. That was good. I know why everybody's so grumpy in Comox these days. Anyway, I was just wondering on the night work that's going on, particularly at the top of the hill, but both, I guess, how long will that be going on for?
Yeah, so the night work itself is just for the force main coming through. There's no proposed night work for the roundabout, for example, up at the top of Glacier View Drive. But the night work itself is quite slow because, you know, working at night is invariably a little bit more inefficient. And so they're expecting a couple of months on Comox Hill and up to 3 months through between the kind of Kuskusum site and Farmview Road. And so it will be for a significant amount of time, but those night works are going to be in sections. You know, they'll start down at Bayside Road, you know, at the first stub of the hill, and they'll be working their way up the hill. So that impact of time when we're towards the top of the hill, when we're impacting, for example, Emerald Shores, where I know there's a lot of people that live in that development there, is for a lot shorter amount of time that we'll be kind of in front of their driveway.
Alternate Director Wells.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Yeah, great report. Definitely appreciate accentuating and articulating the pain that is going to happen. So we're fully aware of it. Really appreciate that. I mean, I do know, like with the city, I mean, the last 3 big projects along this line, whether that's the 5th Street Complete Street 17th or the 5th Street Bridge, which I think is probably closest in terms of impact. You know, and that project was a 6-month project that took 12, right? So totally having that communication out to people as early as possible about delays and stuff, and being on top of it helped at least alleviate some of that anxiety that goes along with it. And so that kind of goes into my question around the media side. Whether or not you guys will be utilizing any of the local politicians, as it were, and their political capital in that messaging to get it out to the public.
I suppose we haven't talked about that, but we are open to all offers of time and ideas of how best to get out that word. You know, we generally use traditional media and new media and throw money at you know, or bumping up all those messages through searches and things. But if there's any lessons learned from Fifth Street, for example, or any offers of, I know there's great connections through Rotaries and all those kind of things through our politicians, any offers there that, or just offers to reach out and discuss with Ingrid, our communication specialist, where we are all ears, and we'd be stoked to kind of collaborate.
Okay, no, I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing the Rotary meetings. I'm sure the chairs in the past have as well, and fireside chats, that kind of stuff. So I'd be more than happy to share with anything that I have been doing as well. But that'd just be the one thing that I would say is really useful. And yeah, bringing up Rotary clubs and other service clubs, definitely useful. So yeah, a necessary project though. So thanks so much.
Any other questions? Director Hardy is in attendance and has a question. Would you like to come to the podium and then we can hear online? Director Hardy, of course, from Area B, not on the commission, but often attends a meeting. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to follow up. I know a lot of Area B residents up and around the Lazaro Road area have expressed a lot of concerns regarding young kids that are used to riding their bicycles along Lazaro Road to get to Brooklyn Elementary, and aren't able to get through via Lazaro Road right now is a big concern. Hearing a lot of issues with that. 8-10-year-old kids being forced to ride their bicycles from the Lazaro Road area up past the base, past the airport, up past Highland School to get to Brooklyn Elementary. So normally a 5 or 10 minute bike ride is now quite long for an 8 or 10-year-old kid. So I know, Charlie, I get and understand the issues revolving around safety and everything else for everybody. But if we could come up with a solution that would make everybody happy out there with regards to the young kids that have to get to school in the morning, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think I hear that 100%, and we have had hundreds of phone calls with those same parents, and we've collaborated, we've sat down with contractors, we've come up with no good plans is the reality. That you can see the green dotted line here is the trails that we've gone out and physically flagged for those families so that they can get through without having to ride around. We have tried to work with WorkSafe to try to figure out a corridor through the construction zone. The reality is we're building a very large pipe in a very constrained road prism in a very environmentally sensitive area. And we're on a very strict time mandate to get that done by September, end of the month, so September 30th, by the province as our permit to get through there. We're doing it at the driest time of year. So there's a lot of competing things that we're trying to manage here to get through there. And this was the best we could come up with. We even looked at batching school kids through the zone, having a meeting point at 8 a.m. and being escorted through the zone. And we couldn't get that through WorkSafe. And we realized that then you have a parent, because a lot of the younger kids are coming with a parent, is now stranded on the other side and they have to get batched back through. So it's actually 4 batches through a construction zone. And it's not manageable on the tight timeline that we have. And WorkSafe wouldn't allow it without a barricaded walkway. So I want to just ensure the commission and Director Hardy, we have taken this very seriously. Everyone in my team has small children who go off to schools and daycares, and we all ride our bikes. We really wanted to make this happen, and we couldn't figure it out. And so the safety of the kids is more important than trying to get them through there. And so we feel like we had a bit of a win when we, got out there and looked at the trails and went and physically flagged them for the families. But it's not perfect, but it is the best we can come up with.
Thanks, Charlie, and thanks for the question, Director Hardy. We're gonna have some very fit children climbing those hills over the next month. Mayor Wells.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of following in the same vein of things on public awareness. One of the things that we found is even with lots of signage was a challenge. And so I just wondered how far out you expect the signage to be to kind of warn people what's going on, especially if there's going to be limitations on, what types of vehicles can go where. I know we had signs saying if you're more than this tall, don't go on the bridge. And we still had multiple commercial vehicles who should have known better, give people a pretty big scare as they knocked over the scaffolding that was in place. So in this case, I doubt there'd be that kind of risk for injury, but especially when you've got people working and we're talking about kids and all those kinds of things. So just how that signage would be, how prevalent and kind of how far out to give people as much notice as possible, if you know.
Yeah, so this corridor here is a very popular bike route that people do a loop through here. And so we have signage right back towards the roundabout, right at the airport there, saying there is no way to get through. Please turn around. I've driven through that a couple of times on my way to the beach with my family on the weekends, and I think it's really good on the way out to the wastewater treatment plant. It's very clear. We did have a lot of people blasting through, like ignoring our traffic control personnel, which is very worrying. We've experienced that a lot in the town of Comox as well. And so we're working with the RCMP because we are really worried about bikers, just dodging our TCPs and then getting hurt. There was someone who died in Victoria a couple of years ago by dodging TCPs and riding directly into an excavation. And so it's something we take very seriously. You can see here on this is why I included this picture. This is the size of the hole we're digging along Lazo Road. Now it's pretty clear that you can't get through there with anything, but still people are disobeying the barricades and things we put on the side trails. This area around Brent Road has a huge amount of interconnecting trails around the marsh. And so it is a concern, but I think the contractor's done a really great job of having those signage way back so that people aren't getting frustrated. So it's very clear that there is no passage through there. And since working with a lot of the families down in the kind of Point Homes neighborhood, a lot of them have come back and say, we appreciate the efforts and we're disappointed that we still can't get through, and we're really desperate for you guys to finish quickly. So I think the contractor, the amount of work that's gone into these traffic management plans is significant to try to address a lot of those concerns.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And maybe one follow-up, if I may.
Mhm.
I had made what may seem a bit of a flippant comment, but maybe I'll follow up. Just, you know, in the case of the original timelines for our bridge project versus the actual, and just wondered, you know, how things are kind of panning out for this project, if it looks like things are relatively close, or, I mean, you mentioned that there was already things with the water main and stuff, if that's pushing us to the outer limits of what we thought it would be, or if we're actually having to reconsider how long.
Actually, I might just jump in there, Charlie. I know the next item on the agenda is the dashboard, and I think you'll be speaking to the schedule there. So
Perfect.
that might address your
Yep.
questions there, Director Wells.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great. And Charlie, just a quick question. When you said some residents were maybe going past the traffic control personnel, were those bikers or cars or both?
In this area, it's just been bikers.
Okay.
In Comox, we've had cars blasting through TCPs, blasting through intersections that are closed. Yeah, it's scary. People, we're finding it really hard to communicate, to get people to respect the safety concerns of our workers out there.
Mhm.
These are all people with families. They're all doing the job the best they can. And so any help we can get from anybody on getting that word out there that these traffic closures aren't arbitrary. We're not doing them for the fun of it. And that every single person out there, they're all young folk working out there. And people are putting their lives in danger for the sake of 5 minutes of detour.
Well said, Charlie. And the traffic control personnel in Comox have been really great, and professional and efficient. So thanks to them, and hope they stay safe. All right, so we've already voted on receipt. I don't see any other questions. So we do have a recommendation if someone would like to move it. Perfect. And that is that the traffic management plan along with Appendix A be approved. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Great. So moving along to item number 4 that our CAO just alluded to, we have the construction progress dashboard. If I could have a motion for receipt. Perfect. And back over to staff.
Thanks. And again, over to Charlie for an update on this dashboard.
Yeah, so the project is progressing really well. You know, it's a very big project with a lot of moving parts. But with regards to budget, we're starting to tick up there in our spend to date. You can see there 23 of 96. So doing math on the fly, we're up around 25% of money spent, and there's no budget amendments proposed at this stage. Which I think is great, but we've got a long way to go. And both the design build contract and the design bid build contract, which is Waycore doing that scope through the town, I think they're both doing a great job of staying on track. With regards to schedule, so the overarching schedule for the entire project is to finish commissioning in February 2026. And the critical path for that is the Courtney Pump Station. You can see that the Courtney Pump Station goes through the entire time of the project there. So we are a little bit behind on our force main installation along Balmoral Road. We hit some real issues on Stewart as we came up Stewart, and lots of little issues on Balmoral. So we're a couple of months behind there, but it's actually not the critical path for the overarching project. And in addition to that, they're not actually the critical path for the major unidirectional traffic either. And so we are still confident on our overall completion date in early 2026 at this stage. And we are still confident on our kind of January to fall for the unidirectional traffic in the Comox Ave, Comox Road corridor. But if you were to go back, say 6 months or a year from now, I would have told you that we would already be back on Beaufort now, building westwards, and we are a little bit behind there. So the folks that live at kind of Beaufort and Jane thought we would be back in August. I think it's a really positive thing that we didn't mobilize back there after the August long, which was the original plan. And we're coming back there after the kind of summer busyness dies down around Marina Park. And it just means that we're going to be a little bit slower in completing that western section of the town of Comox. If you could scroll down again, Lisa, to the second page. And this just has some construction photos of some of the completed streets, which we're really proud of. You know, it really hurt the folks on Stewart how long we were there when we were building along there, and the parallel storm mains were collapsing into the trench that was 70 years old, and this work that we didn't anticipate in doing, but that, you know, working really closely with the town staff who've been fantastic. You can pass that on to your staff at the town, working with Craig and JR at the town, as they've been really, really great to work with. I think we're finishing with a really great product. And some of the really, some of the big things that we're installing, you can see here the huge beam that we've installed across Brooklyn Creek. And that is such that in the future, if the town decides to replace the culvert that is Brooklyn Creek, that you can dig that up without having to worry about our force main. That'll be fully supported across that span. And some of that big stuff is now in the ground, and some of those risks behind us. So that's really great. You can see here the long snake of the sewer force main on Brent Road in the sand. A lot simpler and quicker to install than the pipe through the town. And I think the contractor in the town doesn't like to visit this construction site as much because they don't have nearly as many issues. But there are other issues, as you can imagine. So overall, things are going for a project of this size at this stage. I think we're doing great. Lots of risk, lots of little things going on, but overarching, really positive.
Thank you. Question from Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. And my apologies for being a few minutes late. I missed a ferry and got here as soon as I could. So hopefully I haven't already missed if this is being discussed, but I was looking at the CVRD construction contingency on the budget page. And well, we've only used about 25% of the budget generally. It looks like we've used 90+% of the contingency already. Am I looking at that? Oh, sorry, I'm reading it back to Fred. So there you go. Stop, take a breath after you get the meeting. I'll leave it there. Thanks. Looks like we have lots left for contingency, and that's fantastic.
There is, and this doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. It's hard with these updates to tell the whole story. We do have more of that contingency allocated to certain risks, but those risks haven't fully played out. So we haven't fully allocated those funds. So I wouldn't read this and say, oh, fantastic, they're going to come in well under budget. There are risks that we have allocated chunks of that contingency, but there's no risks right now that we're allocating more than that contingency that we have.
Great. Any other questions? Perfect. So we'll vote on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt of this dashboard report? Perfect. All right. So that ends those topics. We do have a motion to go in camera for a closed meeting. Moved by McCollum. All those in favor? Right. And we'll take a quick recess as we get ready to go in camera.